Hello and welcome to the 16th installment of our War and Peace 50 Pages a Day read through. I am Matthew Robinson. Joining me is the wonderful, the talented, the beautiful Dimitri Portnoy. Hello, Dimitri.
Hello, Matt. Hello, everybody.
Today we are going to be discussing pages 750 to 800. We are 2/3 of the way through the book. Once you hit page 800, congratulations on that. We have about 412 pages left to go. We have just a regular book left to read. That's it.
Sure.
And then we'll have read War and Peace. Tell us about what happens in these 50 pages here, Dimitri.
I think Natasha goes on a picnic.
That's it. Those 50 pages of a long picnic description.
That's it.
And it's just peace. No. What happens is war. A lot of war, a lot of violence. Specifically, we are talking about the Battle of Borodino, which was a pivotal fight I think they call it a Pyrrhic victory for the Russians, where there are so many losses on both sides that it almost doesn't matter who won. It was a devastating battle, and we're going to see it from both sides, but we start out seeing it from Napoleon's side as he plots and plans, and we get some interesting descriptions of Napoleon.
He is a pig.
Yeah,
an animal.
He is a French piggy being scrubbed clean with his covered in curly, thick hair that must be rubbed and massaged and sprayed with cologne. And I'm starting to think
he keeps saying harder.
Yeah, I'm starting
and there's a valet who knows precisely where to spritz the French water.
I'm starting to think Tolstoy doesn't like Napoleon. It's subtle, but I'm starting to think he might not think he's a wonderful guy.
Sure.
We also get a very comedic moment where Napoleon is presented with a painting of his son, who they call
his newborn. I don't think he's seen him before.
No, right. They call him the King of Rome for no reason, other than the fact that he's probably was born in Rome. And as Napoleon loves the painting, and as they come out to the battlefield, he asks them to turn the painting away because his son is too young to see violence, which I think is funny.
It's a very interesting description of Napoleon, and later on, Tolstoy picks apart and tears apart Napoleon's marching orders in the battle in a sequence that reminds me of Mark Twain. Mark Twain has some wonderfully funny, incredibly sarcastic essays. And this one reminds me of the literary offenses of James Fenimore Cooper, where Mark Twain can take a passage from James Fenimore Cooper and show how literally every phrase and concept in it is completely absurd and would never work in the real world.
Yeah.
And I feel that's exactly what Tolstoy does with poor Napoleon.
Yeah, no, they're both definitely writers.
Who's never been so viciously attacked.
They're writers that could destroy anyone with a few sentences, I feel like, absolutely. And Tolstoy definitely takes apart Napoleon here and his plan. We get a lot of talk about war in and of itself. And Tolstoy, the pacifist, I believe, starts shining through in a conversation between Pierre and Andre. We finally get the two, it's not the first time, but it's one of the first major times we've seen the two stars of our story coming together and having a little hang sesh before the big battle. And
the last time they were on a ferry.
Yep.
Together.
Mm-hmm.
And Pierre managed to make Andre fall in love with life again.
That's right.
And feel hope again.
Yeah.
That was the past.
Not so much this time.
Not so much this time, because Andre is so personally upset that the French troops driving his son away from the estate, causing the death, not directly, but still causing the death of his dad. Pillaging his estates. He takes it personally.
Yeah.
He is really mad. He's really angry. And the normally cool-headed, tactical Andre is ready to just ride into battle.
Yeah.
With an almost mindless vehemence. And actually, he kind of instills that in Pierre.
Yeah,
Pierre winds up strangling someone on the battlefield.
Yeah,
now, It's a funny bit
Yeah.
that reminds me of like a bit from Buster Keaton's The
Mm-hmm.
General. But yeah, fat, beautiful Pierre, the Pierre of philosophy, the Pierre of skies and mazes and obscure secrets and uh, uh, peaceful schemes almost strangle somebody to death
Yeah.
in a very comic way.
Yeah, so I described
But
Pierre before as Tommy Boy, as the rich, fat, stupid son of a wealthy man who's handed a lot of power, and here we get Tommy Boy heading to war and riding a horse who he comically almost falls off of, and he can't even hold his glasses on as he's bouncing foolishly up and down on his horse. But he's brave. I mean, he's running towards death. It's hard to decide if he's he's suicide. He really feels this thing like he's a part of destiny and wants to be at the heart of the battle, that he thinks he will find his purpose there, his calling, that somehow he belongs where the action is the thickest.
He becomes a mascot almost.
Yeah. Well, they keep telling him to leave. They keep saying, sir, you don't need to be here. This is where the peasants die, not the nobles.
But he winds up inspiring them.
Yeah.
Because he's just strolling around.
Yeah, in his white
with a
hat.
curious look on his face, with bullets whizzing by and cannonballs.
His horse gets shot at some point, and he wasn't even aware of it. And they say how brave you are.
And in fact, I think a cannonball lands 2 feet away from him and spatters him with the mud. He just looks at it and says, how cool, how interesting.
Yeah.
But he's focused on the soldiers.
Yeah.
He's focused on their humanity. He talks to them. And I think Tolstoy says something like, they're astonished that he talks to them like a regular person.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to decide if he's tilting at windmills or if he's actually being brave here.
I think he's showing a lack of awareness of his physical situation, but at the same time, empathy. Because even as he's strangling the French officer, he's aware of the absurdity of the situation. Ultimately, they let each other go.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they're knocked apart from a cannon. The cannon explodes and sort of separates them, and then they're running in different directions.
Yes.
But he had the upper hand before that happened.
Well, he's bigger, and he has. It's an interesting detail, and again, Tolstoy. There are a million details in this novel, but he points out that Pierre has the French officer by the throat, and the French officer has Pierre by the collar. Mm-hmm. Which is like one of them is almost thinking of it as the French guy is thinking of it as a social situation. You grab someone by the collar to tell him, you insulted me and you owe me something, whereas you grab someone by the throat to take their life.
Maybe we're back in our wolf hunt metaphor too, though, because wolves grab each other by the throat and the collar.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't think of that. I think that is a true insight.
We get a lot of so right before the night of the battle, Pierre and Andre are together, and Andre thinks there's a good chance he will die the next day, and begins thinking of his life and specifically Natasha and his love for her, which may be in his moment of vulnerability, he allows himself to feel those feelings which he had closed off out of pain earlier, out of his betrayal, feeling of being betrayed. And we get an interesting conversation about the individual versus the group again, this time using the allegory of chess, and how, war is nothing like chess in that a pawn is always weaker than a rook in chess, but on the battlefield, there's so many factors. There's weather, there's terrain, there's the spirits of the soldiers that day, and a pawn could be stronger than a rook on a given day, and just how much chaos and unknowns there are, and how impossible it is to plan anything, and just the overall chaos and unknowability of war and unplannability of war, which then leads directly into what you were saying earlier about Napoleon's whole speech, where we get an actual historical letter describing his plans for the day, and Tolstoy line by line tearing them apart and how those plans could have never come to fruition, even under the best circumstances.
One of the things Tolstoy says, which I found profound, is that most soldiers are killed by randomly flying bullets and cannonballs. When they launch into the fray, when they launch into this no man's land, where they're going to be cut down randomly. And Tolstoy says that, like, people may advance, people may retreat, they may venture, they may drive each other back and forth, but they're killed by the machinery of war that's random, rather than often their own initiative.
Go ahead.
And to me, that is like what a waste.
Yeah.
That even individual planning and individual courage doesn't matter so much. In Tolstoy's view, I can't imagine that he's wrong.
Right, and so a part of this is Tolstoy's goal of destroying the great man theory in this book, which we see Napoleon right before the Battle of Borodino begins. He says something along the lines of, "The pieces are on the board. The game will begin tomorrow," which definitely wants to echo the chess talk from the night before, where they were talking about how the pieces this is not chess. And that war is nothing like chess. And here's Napoleon, who just goes, the pieces are here. Let's move the pieces around. So taking away all of this great man, like, one man can decide the fate of the future. And Napoleon, he even has this whole thing about how, they think that historians like to say the French lost because Napoleon was sick that day. But you'd have to go.
And Tolstoy points out, he got a cold on August 20th.
Right.
Like who gets a cold in the middle of the summer? Right. And even points out that his valet brought him the non-waterproof shoes.
Right. So the valet then, who then is more important, the valet who brought it to him, or Napoleon? How far back do we want to go?
Who got his feetsies wet?
Becomes
the little piglet who got
butterfly effect. Yeah, exactly.
Very exciting, extremely fast-paced, big battle scenes. You don't know who's gonna live and die. Big confrontations, and it's a mixture of violence and humor.
Yeah.
Some
a strange combination.
Very funny stuff if you open yourself up to that.
And one of those sort of funny, but also very classic Tolstoy moments when he just has these very honest moments where Pierre, who sees dead bodies around him and wounded soldiers, and he says, don't they see all this violence and feel horrified and want to stop? Like just it's a child's thought in the middle of a battle, but one that you can imagine having. It's like, can't the people who are killing each other look around and see all these dead bodies and aren't they horrified by what's happening?
Exactly. Tolstoy says, they've had enough. Yeah. Now they're going to stop because they're going to... But no, later he tells you that's just the beginning of the battle. Right. that when Pierre was having his thought, that was just the overture to the Wagnerian opera of Borodino.
So we end in the middle of the battle on our 50 pages, and we will end with you today in the middle of that discussion as well. And tomorrow we will join you with 800 to 850 and more of the Battle of Borodino. I'm Matthew Robinson.
It will be over soon.
Well, yes, it's a short battle, I think. I'm Matthew Robinson. That's Dimitri Portnoy. And farewell, dear hearts.
Again, it's nice to have all that death and destruction on the page.
Yes, absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Bye.